This is Knobula's Monumatic. It is a polyphonic synth that can be used via MIDI or via CV gate. I'm playing it via MIDI now. I'm currently using one of 6 filters, and I can switch between different filter modes. They can all also have a additional drive mode. You heard vowel mode. There's also phase mode. Or notch. Now without drive. Or high pass. Or low pass. Currently, when I play it, the aftertouch does quite a lot. It gets quite loud, and this has to do with the envelope, which has 3 options to adjust it instead of 4 for usual ADSR, and you're gonna make some compromises. So let's explain this. If I play a chord, turn down the reverb. There's another reverb coming from my Echo Cinematic currently. So no, this is dry Monumatic. And if I make release longer, of course we know what happens, but turning the big button to the left sets sustain to a low level and makes decay shorter. But now watch this. If I turn it up, sounds get shorter again, because this way I'm turning up sustain level, and that means this button also becomes decay and release at the same time. So I got to turn this up in order to get what I want. And this also means that if I use aftertouch, then my aftertouch volume won't be that much higher than the standard volume, because aftertouch is affecting volume. So that's my intro for it, but maybe the main part are those 16 oscillator modes, and I'm currently using noise. And this uses some noise for modulation by using the detune knob. So the detune knob usually switches to some unison sound and then to a fifth. Now I play just one note. And also to an octave, but what it does is a bit different depending on the oscillator mode. I wanted to say algorithm because those oscillator modes can be compared with algorithms, because lots of different things happen when you switch to one. For example, in the mode Super 7, this will play up to 7 oscillators. Multiplied with 8 voices, that means we have up to 56 oscillators for one sound. And the thing is, Monumatic is capable of some sounds that are quite different to Polycinematic, but it can do what Polycinematic was able to do, to have this nice vintage-like synth sound, and it has some more options. For example, Casio CZ style. Or 3 different organs. This one is good for bass. And here we have 2 other organs. And of course, the sound depends a lot on the setting of the detune. And we have also sync modes. Or in those LFO modes, X8 for example, we have 8 LFOs. And turning up detune rises speed, and as far as I can hear, also intensity. And there's also an integrated reverb, which cleverly combines the options of a mixer with the options of an effect unit in a way that if I turn it up, I'm just adding reverb while my dry signal still keeps the same volume. Normally on an effect unit, turning up wet makes you lose some dry signal, and that's in most cases not what you want. So that's a quite short setting for the reverb time. Via shift I can turn it up. 3/4 sound like this. If I now turn reverb up again. So you can hear this reverb is capable of quite long tails. And keeps sounding even after I turn it down, so I can really use it like a send. And there's also the option to do a lot more, for example, fine-tuning of the oscillators and some temperament settings, which are accessed by holding shift. So let's try to play a chord and use this. And the manual states that we are using some Hermo tuning, which means certain intervals get a correction that is closer to a pure tuning, which is something a choir or an acoustic instrument usually plays anyway, but with a keyboard, you got to decide in which key you are playing and then decide how the single tones are tuned. So you have to make compromises, and in order to make the thing sound a little bit better, the Hermo tuning was invented and it's in here. But the danger is if you turn it up too high, we're entering wrong tuning area. And of course, since it's a shift function, you don't always see what's going on. So that's the danger with this module. You can't always see what is there. So sometimes things may sound not as good as expected, but it's not the module's fault. It's because there's some settings that you've made, maybe in advance, or that are in there, whatever. So I strongly recommend to take a look at the manual in order to really be able to get the best out of this thing. And this is also the case for another option called Chords, because there is a setting where you can switch between mono and poly, and this makes a lot of differences in the chord mode as a first example, and also when using MIDI channels as a second example. So for example, shift and frequency changes the MIDI channel, and turning it down to the left, fully to the left, makes it react to all chords I'm playing. But if I use it in mono mode, then this means it is ready to receive different MIDI channels for different notes, meaning you can play it via MPE and an MPE controller such as Intuitive Instruments Exquise. And the way it behaves regarding the chords is also different in mono and in stereo modes. So now I am in mono mode. That means turning on trigger mode leads to playing of a chord that has been stored before. So let's see what chord is just on. I can turn the mod wheel. For example, this is a chord that I've saved before. And now if I play different keys, this chord gets transposed. At the same time, we have 8 slots to store chords in, and I can switch between those slots by turning this wheel or by turning the mod wheel, which is now also affecting it. So I'm now getting a different chord. So these are my different chords that I made it learn. So, and that's the other thing, how to learn it and how to play with it. So let me explain. In monophonic mode, I'm turning on chord mode with this button. And in polyphonic mode, this button works differently. If I hit it, I play a chord and exactly the one I stored, but I cannot turn chord mode on. Instead, I'm supposed to learn these, and if I turn the mod wheel or if I turn release, then I'm switching the slots. I don't have to turn release, I have to turn shift release for chord select. So now I'm using the mod wheel, and for each slot you can see there's a little flickering. So that's the first slot now. I'm turning the mod wheel down and I'm playing a chord. And now I'm rising the mod wheel and I'm playing a second chord. So, but now it sounds weird since I'm having some detuning going on. So I'm starting over, turning down the mod wheel, playing a minor chord. And now hitting shift and save. And now rising the mod wheel until it flickers, playing a different chord. And now shift and save. That means if I now switch to mono mode and play and enter chord mode, I can play this chord, and if I go back with my mod wheel, I'm going back to the other chord. And since it's 8 voice polyphonic, I can play 8 voice chords, which is quite interesting. And if you want more, for example, like strumming or arpeggiated playing, you should definitely try out Knobula's Chord Pilot. But for now, this is the thing. And the main thought behind it is, of course, that now you can use CV gate in order to play chords. So you just trigger one note, enter chord mode, and then you can play different chords and you can switch the chords also via CV. Let's take a look at this also, because we have 2 CV inputs, which is more than, for example, Polycinematic had to offer. And those inputs can be assigned after I put something in. So I play a note, connecting, tweaking. Now it's working. Well, I have the modulation here now, and I'm better off, I think, if I put an attenuator in between. And now let's get rid of it again. Try it again. Starting from there. Doesn't make a difference. So it keeps it memorized, but if I stick it in and then turn pitch, for example, in and then. So now it works. And what's also possible, for example, is to automatically switch between oscillator modes. Didn't work in the first place. And since detune always does something different depending on the oscillator mode that's turned on, especially turning up detune makes a big difference if I try this out. So, I hope you got a good impression of what Monumatic can do. Obviously, it can be used via MIDI, via MPE, and very well integrated via CV Gate.